to Overdrive. I'm Shireen Bha. Now, most cars that you see can be classified into 4 different categories: value for money, luxury, performance or eco-friendly. But every once in a while there comes a car that breaks the mold. This one costs 21 lakh rupees, has 2 doors and guarantees to get you noticed everywhere you go. Ladies and gentlemen, meet the Volkswagen Beetle.
You've rarely seen us shoot this early in the morning. I know it's a strange but then what do? There is a reason behind this madness. I'll tell you why. The last time we shot the BMW Z4, that car with the top down aroused so many men. We just did not have the space to shoot that car comfortably. And then came the Fiat 500. That car was so good looking, so interesting, compact, yet so utterly gorgeous. Even while we were driving that car, we'd be swarmed by hordes of people coming up with motorcycles and cars trying to find out what it is and how it is and all of that. So now, when we got the Volkswagen Beetle, can you imagine such an iconic shape, a legend in its own right, one of the most unmistakable designs in the planet. We drove this car in Bombay and it was just impossible to find the space to shoot it comfortably, which is why we're here on Marine Drive at 3 a.m. in the morning trying to get a story done on one of the most legendary cars on the planet. We're going to tell you in a few minutes just how good this car is. This early in the morning, I'd expect to drive a car which would wake me up thoroughly and put a smile on my face. I mean, the effort of having woken up at 2 in the morning and driven 40 kilometers to the shoot had better be good. But it isn't, and honestly, I never expected it to be. Because you see, the drivetrain Volkswagen offers in the Beetle is nearly a decade old, and it's as responsive and energetic as my grandmother. Sorry Grandma, but what I would have liked to see is either the 2.5 litre petrol or the 1.9 TDI. And this engine makes about 116 PS of max power and about 170 Newton meters of max torque. It's a 2 litre inline petrol engine. And it is rather disappointing. It just does not have enough grunt to make life exciting at 3 in the morning. Not that I'm trying to break any speed limits at this hour, but earlier, when conducting our test, the Beetle turned out to be one of the slowest of the must-own one car brigade. It takes over 14 seconds to do 100 km per hour, and that is slower than what even the Fiat 500 with its measly 1.3 litre diesel engine is capable of. There is of course a reason for that, and that is its gearbox. This automatic transmission is slow on the uptake. It just does not respond to driver inputs like you'd expect it to. Quite frankly, overall it's a lazy gearbox. And then so are several other aspects of this car. The steering isn't precise, it is a bit vague. The handling isn't crisp. And the brakes are just something you're not going to write home about. Which is surprising, because the mechanicals of the new Beetle are based on the Volkswagen Group PQ35 platform, which has spawned cars such as the Golf and the Skoda Octavia. So you'd expect this car to be spacious, you'd expect it to have fairly good ride quality, and you'd expect it to have brilliant handling. Well, I've already told you the handling isn't crisp and it isn't something you're going to shout out loud about. As for the space, well, inside this car, there's enough space for 2 adults, but on that rear bench, you're only going to be able to fit in kids. As for the ride quality, well, it is a bit bouncy and hard as well, which makes it quite uncomfortable to drive in the city, especially on concrete roads. So by now, you're thinking, what does the Beetle really have going for it? To be honest, there isn't a single thing I can think of that really interests me. And while the styling is distinct and is a perfect evolution of the classic Beetle, the rest of the aggregates just don't add up. There is no mistaking, it is the most recognizable shape in the history of the automobile, and that people do find it irresistibly cute. But would you honestly want to spend your money on a car that only has its styling going for it? You want my opinion? Volkswagen is doing stock clearance before the next Beetle hits markets internationally late this year or early next year. Volkswagen should have introduced the Scirocco, It's a lot more car, more contemporary, and in my opinion, better looking with better dynamics and performance. The bottom line is that at nearly 25 lakh rupees, you could buy a Skoda Superb, and you'd actually get a lot more car for that kind of money. Not the new Volkswagen Beetle. I admit the build quality is fantastic, the styling is going to get you noticed almost anywhere, and at that kind of pricing, the exclusivity is immense. But then, at that kind of pricing, I would actually want to see a Volkswagen Golf GTI or perhaps even the Scirocco. This car was designed and built in 1998, and its mechanicals in fact are even older than that. So if you want a true piece of automotive history, you're better off buying the classic Beetle.